This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today I'm here with Robert Tushinsky of 2XL Swagger Brands. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Hall, thank you for having me on your podcast.
So great. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? What did you do before joining 2XL Swagger Brands?
Sure. I guess I have been accused of being a serial entrepreneur. I've bounced around in multiple industries, not really sticking with a specific industry. I look for where I can fit in and find solution to a problem I think exists. For example, in the early 90s, I was in consumer packaged goods. I had a pasta company in Los Angeles. We produced fresh pack pastas for about 700 accounts in Los Angeles, Orange County area. We ended up, before I sold the business, we ended up in all Ralph's, Vons, Pace, and Price Club stores in the West Coast. Later, I got involved in consumer electronics products, and that's where my family background is. I developed a unique cell phone alerting device. Nowadays, it's irrelevant because our phones vibrate and alert us, and people have smartwatches. But back in the late 90s, I discovered a problem when my wife would go jogging and she would miss calls or I would miss calls. And I developed an alerting device via a pen that looked like a Mont Blanc pen where the head illuminated, Swatch watch type watches that the bezel illuminated, and a lot of costume jewelry. And we called the company Cellular Jewelry. I won a CNET Best Gadget Award in 2004. So I've ranged from consumer packaged goods to publishing to consumer electronics products. And recently I'm in medical equipment sales. That's what keeps the light on and pays the bills. But my focus is 2XL Swagger for the last 4.5 years.
And so why are you moving into the space that is Swagger Brands these days? What led you to work there?
Well, that's a great story. And it goes back to my connection to my father and a passion that I have for these spirits. My father is who I credit, who developed these spirits. When I was a child, my father introduced Sony into the United States in 1958. And my dad would make this product that he would call Frutka, which is vodka at the time. All he had was Stolichnaya vodka, and he would infuse fruit. At the time when I was a kid, I didn't notice the herbs that he was also infusing in his beverage. He would call this beverage Frutka, and he would share it with family and friends. My parents entertained a lot as a child. And what captivated me over Dad's Frutka beverage was, one, I was too young to drink it. He wouldn't let me drink it. But every year before the corporate divorce between Sony and my father's business, Morita-san, Akio Morita, the founder of Sony, and his entourage would come to Los Angeles for corporate meetings before they would go on to the CES show in Las Vegas. And Dad would host Morita-san at his home for dinner. And I would see these two formal men exchange gifts. And at that time, I didn't know that these beautiful porcelain hand-painted decanters of geisha or samurai had Morita-san's family's 100-year-old sake in his product, in this beautiful decanter. And if you're familiar with traditional gift giving in that culture, you don't upstage the other. So, and I didn't know this as a child. Dad would in turn put his Fruca concoction in these beautiful Lalique crystal decanters, and they would do this formal gift exchange. And as a child bearing witness to this, I would see this exchange. I'm like, what is this magical beverage that Dad called Fruca that I couldn't touch as a child? Long after my father passed away in '89. This is in the early 90s. I'm visiting my father's kid brother, and we're reminiscing about Dad. And I would share stories. Oh gosh, I was so fascinated with Dad's Fruca. He wouldn't let me drink it, but when he'd go out of town and leave me at home with his staff, I'd throw these parties and we would drink his Fruca dry. And my aunt and uncle, they start laughing. They're like, Robert, do you know what was in your father's Fruca? I'm like, I think I do. I used to watch him make it. They're like, son, your father suffered from ED. It wasn't until he started doing business in Japan and traveling into Asia and opening up factories in Taiwan, he was introduced to herbs known to their culture for centuries to help him with his condition. And he was sharing it amongst friends and family to see if it benefited anybody. So for the past several decades, I just played around with it as a fun thing, keeping in contact with Dad. It wasn't until 2012, I walked into a convenience store and I found on one of the shelves a plethora of herbal enhancement products. And I am an inquisitive guy. I'm like, who's buying all this herbal stuff and everything? I'm reading the back of the ingredients. I'm seeing, oh, those are herbs that I've experienced trying to mix in Dad's Fruca concoction. And I started researching the industry. I'm like, gosh, maybe Dad was onto something, because Dad was a pioneer in consumer electronics. Maybe Dad was onto something that he didn't even really realize he was at the time. And I researched the industry and I found that, gosh, male enhancement market, since the advent of Viagra and Cialis, it's a multi-billion dollar. This is 2012. It was $22 billion at the time. It since then has almost $40 billion. And I researched the liquor industry, and there's no spirits that have these herbs or anything remotely close to it in the market. So I thought, gosh, no one's done this. These young people that are the driving force of this herbal enhancement market, they're going to clubs. That's when they're consuming these products, when they're going out clubbing. Why not already have that packaged in the spirit like Dad had? And I had fun trying to recreate. So long story short, that's how I developed and decided to bring 2XL into life. I spent some time with 15 of the top herbalists in the United States and Canada, one of whom is here in Austin, Texas, with a school of herbal medicine she's had for over 15 years. And it wasn't until I met with these herbalists and collaborated with them that they helped me to produce the formulas that we infuse into our spirits.
Great. So you've been in the space for some time and you met a lot of investors and you see what works. What's your advice for people investing in this space? What should they be looking for?
That's pretty individualized there, right? If I can get into a head of an investor, if I were looking to invest, I'd look for uniqueness. There's a lot of buzz around, especially the last couple of years, with labels that are getting ridiculous valuations because they are tied with celebrities, Casamigos, and the latest one is Aviation Gin. But that's oddities. That's the meteorite. I would look and suggest to look for spirits that aren't just another label, because There's thousands of vodkas, there's thousands of bourbons, there's thousands of tequilas. It's just another label and a different story twist. Our spirits have a little different of an angle.
Great. And so let's talk about the industry for a moment. Spirits industry and so forth. It's big, it's growing, et cetera. How is it evolving? Where is it going at this point?
What I've seen in the last couple of years since I've been in the industry is millennials are looking for low alcohol beverage. They're not drinking as much. They're wanting more out of their spirits that they're indulging in with. A lot of the industry is going to RTDs, which is ready to drink.
Sounds good. And so if you look at this sector of the spirits industry, what's the growth rate of this area that we're talking about?
Well, last year in 2019, it was a record year. I believe the industry grew somewhere between 5 and 6%. In previous years, the industry's been growing steadily over 3.5%, 4%.
Good. And how many companies are engaged in the general alcohol industry? It seemed like there's quite a few.
Well, there are, and this is a highly competitive industry because of the last decade or so of high value acquisitions from the major conglomerates. But it seems like every month there's at least a dozen, if not more, brands coming into this space. So it's extremely competitive. But the top guys control at least 95% of the market. And that's the Grey Goose, that's the Patrons, that's the Jack Daniels, Jim Beams.
Well, great. So it sounds like it's a large market with a lot of potential going on there, dominated by big players because there's big dollars at stake for sure. But what are the challenges in this space? As you start this business, what are the barriers to entry that keeps other people out?
Well, that's just the thing. The barriers to entry, of course, are a high startup costs, especially if you're wanting to go the brick and mortar and build a distillery. I've built my model for the end game, which is acquisition. So we don't have a distillery. We've partnered with a distillery in Talia, Texas, so that we're just an asset sale, not a brick and mortar sale as well, because that could complicate. I think these big guys don't need a little distillery helping to produce the kind of volumes that they can produce with the brands. But the major barrier is having the supply of capital, because it's a very competitive market and it's a high dollar marketing to push the product through. It's not a pull through. You're pushing the product through the market. What I mean by that is, for every case that we sell, we're spending around $60 to $80 a case, which is about our gross margin, to promote that case at that venue.
Great. Well, so tell us more about Swagger Brands and how do you fit into the overall landscape? What position do you take, and talk more about your uniqueness there?
Sure. Thank you. I shared earlier that we're the only one currently that is trying to introduce a spirit with, quote, functional benefits. We know in the industry, it's very regulated in how you can market an alcohol beverage. I couldn't outwardly communicate this as an advertisement that we're a spirit with functional benefits in a marketing campaign, because we're restricted and can't, but we are. There's no laws saying that we can't have functional benefits. For example, Jägermeister and aperitifs are spirits with functional benefits. There's over 75 herbs in Jägermeister. People here in the West don't think about it as a functional benefit, but an aperitif is an after dinner drink, and the Germans have been using an aperitif, especially Jägermeister, for a long time before it was introduced to the US market in the 80s, because they have such a rich diet that having a little bit of Jägermeister helps with their digestion. That's what aperitifs are. So we're no different. I believe that, well, health and fitness has always been my priority in life. And I always watch what I put into my body. And I'm looking for that specific, because that's all we're really trying to do. We're not trying to please everybody here, Paul. You know, we're trying to find our niche. I'm trying to find my tribe and get to the volume that I think we can get, because I think there's more people in health and fitness and more people concerned of what they put into their body, even when they choose to indulge in a spirit that they know that, come on, Hal, we all know that drinking alcohol isn't good for us. But we, every now and then, to relax, it's the most socially acceptable lubricant in the world. And, my philosophy is, okay, if you're going to indulge, why not have spirit with herbs infused into it that may, at the very least, keep you balanced and not take 2 steps back, maybe just a half step back. Because especially we all know that alcohol and libido don't mix. So that's kind of where I think 2XL differentiates ourselves with other spirits. We have the flavor, we've got the ABV, where we positioned ourselves with our packaging and our branding as a super premium spirit, which is what's driving more sales today, because the consumers of alcohol are spending a little bit more on higher priced beverages than the cheaper brands. So we have all that checked on the right side of the box. Where I think our challenges is finding that tribe. And we're growing. And what I think is unique about us, and what proves to hopefully investors that are hearing this and review my offering, is we've raised close to $1 million since 2017. It's a very high burn rate business. We're operating on a bootstring budget, yet before COVID, the accounts that I've picked up, because it's only been me, the accounts that I've picked up reorder. We're in big box with Total Wine. This past week, Twin finally is testing us out on retail, and we're now in 9 locations in Austin. They're testing us out. So on a shoestring budget, with just me, no marketing dollars behind us or building a sales team in this industry, they're brand ambassadors, we're still in the game when most liquor brands, if we were just another tequila label, another bourbon label, we would have been kicked off the shelves of especially Total Wine a long time ago, because we don't have that marketing dollar behind us.
Great. Well, it sounds like the functional benefits segment's really starting to move forward and seeing a lot of growth in that direction. It's good success stories with the Jägermeister has been around for a long time, showing that, it can be a very effective tool as well. So it sounds like you're leading that charge there with functional benefits, and you have some good success story there with the Austin bars and the liquor stores you've been in so far. Sound like you're getting some good take-up rates there. What can you give us a few numbers about repeat sales, or what you might be seeing there at a more of a unit economic level?
Before COVID, we've realized about an 85% repurchase. Now, I'm not exaggerating. A lot of these accounts, they'll buy just a case and then they're going to reorder a case. So it's not high volume, but they're reordering. So it shows that we're finding that tribe that I believe is out there.
Great. And so what's the next step for you guys? You're raising funding, but where do you plan to go from here from Austin?
Well, we already have product in distribution in Florida, in Southern California, and New York, New Jersey. They're sitting in a warehouse. We just haven't raised the capital to hire brand ambassadors to go kick in accounts for us. I'm the only one doing it here in Austin, but we're ready to go. I mean, all we need is the capital to turn the lights on, and we can realize exponential growth in those key markets, specifically Southern California. I've identified people within the industry, minimum 3 years experience working for major distribution companies that are willing to come on board for LA County, Orange County, San Diego County. I've got reps for Dallas, Fort Worth, Central Texas, Houston, and the coast communities ready to come on board, and reps for Florida, New York, and New Jersey as well.
Great. Well, it sounds like you have a good structure ready to go and is launching well across the country already. So in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Well, I'd like to specifically just address that maybe one investor that what I'm saying resonates to them. Everything's a risk today, right? There's no guarantees. I know that when I jumped into this in 2012, did I think that I'd be here today? Of course, I've had different dreams and different goals. I thought we'd already been acquired by today, really. And you look at me like that, it's that quick, Paul. If you look at the labels that have been acquired, it's a hockey puck growth. They've had the capital behind them. They had the celebrity behind them. And it's typically a 3 to 4 year hockey puck growth before a major conglomerate comes in and picks them up. Our goal specifically is to reach that industry milestone of 100,000 9-liter case count.
You got to get to 100,000 cases of 9-liter bottles in order to get on the radar of these guys, it sounds like.
That is correct. And the way that I break it down, the math is simple. And I invite the investor or investors that are hearing this to take a look at our deck and take a look at our presentation, because I have it all laid out and the math is simple.
Cool. Well, that's great. You got it all worked out at this case, and with some money, you can get out there and hit the market as well. Sounds like you've seen some good take up already in Austin with repeat sales. Is that right?
That is correct. What I'm learning in this industry, most of all in any other industry I've been involved with, is this is a relationship building industry. And one of my fortes, per se, is I'm really good at building relationships. I'm very honest and open and transparent. And the people that I work with can see that and feel my passion. So I've worked really hard in Austin to build the relationships in the lower level where I feel they're the grunts, right? The bartenders, the servers. I've made great relationships with those people. I've made great relationships with local distributors. It would be helpful to find that strategic investment partner that can help me grow that building relationships with the big distributors, with the bigger guys.
Okay. Well, great. Well, so how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
My email address you have listed is probably the best. I have been trained to respond during work hours. I'll respond as quick as no later than an hour.
Great. Well, we'll put that email in the show notes along with your website and your LinkedIn profile. And appreciate you joining us today, and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon to check progress and see how things are going.
Thank you, Hall. I look forward to it. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Halti Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.